Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to share a warm welcome to our audience, both in Baku and online, and also distinguished speakers and panelists. Thank you very much for joining us today for the seminar, Climate-Related Disclosure in Asia, Present and Future of Promoting Transparency of SMEs, organized by the Ministry of Environment, Japan, and co-organized by Asian Development Bank Institute, Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA SPI-NDC project, and Overseas Environmental Cooperation Center, Japan. My name is Maki Thomas, and I am a researcher at Overseas Environmental Cooperation Center, Japan, and I'll be your host today. Firstly, it is my honor to welcome His Excellency Minister Asao from the Ministry of Environment, Japan, to give us an opening remarks. Minister Asao, please join us on the stage, and the floor is yours.
Well, distinguished speakers and participants, my name is Keiichiro Asao, and I'm the Minister of Environment of Japan. Of course, it's always a pleasure, but particularly it's a pleasure to welcome all of you after some of the negotiations are going through. And I think it's a good time to hear the side stories along with it. And of course, we have Minister Fu from Singapore and the speakers from Philippines, Vietnam, as well as ADB, Asian Development Bank Institute, JICA, and leading companies actively engaged in concrete actions for decarbonization. First of all, it is crucial to make GHG emissions visible for achieving significant emission reductions. Without understanding actual emissions, we cannot choose effective countermeasures. Without reliable data on emission reductions, we cannot check whether the measures are effective or not. Thus, transparency in greenhouse gas emissions is essential and recognized as a key foundation for decarbonization. Following the TCFD recommendations in 2017, stock exchange in each country have moved toward requiring listed companies to disclose their greenhouse gas emissions. Large companies have advanced transparency in greenhouse gas emissions, including those from their own operations and across their full supply chains. On the other hand, there are enormous number of small and mid-sized enterprises worldwide. And according to the OECD, these small and mid-sized enterprises account for at least 50% of all greenhouse gas emissions from business sector in OECD countries. Therefore, managing emissions from SMEs, that is small and mid-sized enterprises, is an urgent and significant challenge. In order to promote the transparency in greenhouse gas emissions as part of corporate activities globally, the Japanese Ministry of Environment launched a partnership to strengthen transparency for co-innovation called PASTI in 2017. Through its activities, PASTI has gathered direct insights from various Asian countries, including SMEs, or small and mid-sized enterprises, on challenges related to emissions measurements and reporting. Based on these findings, PASTI is supporting the development of reporting systems by the private sector, creating emissions assessment tools, and building the capacity of local personnel. Although making SMEs emissions transparent has significant potential for reductions worldwide, this remains an area with limited progress. I hope that today's seminar will allow us to discuss these challenges, explore solutions from multiple perspectives, and foster collaboration among representatives from different countries and sectors. I conclude my remarks with my wish that the discussion at today's seminar will contribute to strengthening our partnership. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Asao. Next, we have the first keynote speech. I'm delighted to welcome Her Excellency Minister Grace Fu from the Ministry for Sustainability and the Environment and Minister in charge of Trade Relations Singapore. Minister Grace Fu, the floor is yours.
Minister Aso Keiichiro, Minister of the Environment of Japan, ASEAN colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, konnichiwa, good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation to the Japan Pavilion, and I'm pleased to see our friends from Japan and ASEAN here today. This year marks a pivotal year for climate transparency, as parties to the Paris Agreement are required to submit their biennial transparency report by the end of the year. BTRs are necessary to strengthen accountability and build trust in global efforts to advance towards our shared climate goals. Singapore has submitted our BTR, so has Japan, and we urge all countries to submit the BTRs by the end of the year. Carbon accounting, underpinned by robust monitoring, reporting, and verification process, is the foundation for climate action. It is an important first step for both countries and corporates to establish baseline emissions and identify opportunities for decarbonization. In Singapore, large emitters have put in place robust MRV processes to facilitate the administration of carbon tax. Starting next year, we will require listed companies to make climate-related disclosures that are aligned with International Sustainability Standards Board or ISSB standards. Small and medium-sized enterprises are also needed to start measuring their emissions. SMEs make up 97% of all businesses in Asia, and it is imperative to bring them on board for an inclusive climate transition. Earlier this year, Singapore launched a sustainability reporting program to support our SMEs in developing their first sustainability reports. We have also developed digital tools to facilitate assessment of carbon emissions. This include Greenprint, a national data platform that helps companies to automate their emissions reporting, and the Singapore Business Federation's Emission Factors Registry, which provides localized emission factors that help local firms more accurately estimate their greenhouse gas emissions. Collectively, these initiatives help to smoothen the carbon accounting and reporting processes for SMEs, enables them to take steps to embark on their sustainability journey. Governments play an important role in promoting carbon accounting. Their efforts to measure, report, and reduce emissions send a strong signal to businesses to follow suit. Singapore has been taking steps to track and reduce our public sector's emission. We released our inaugural Green Gov report in 2023, which details the emission profile and resource footprint of the public sector, as well as the strategies and initiatives we are taking to enhance environmental sustainability. We have released our second Green Gov report earlier this week. We need to do more within ASEAN to build up our carbon accounting capabilities. In this context, the Partnership to Strengthen Transparency for Co-Innovation, or PAST, is a significant initiative. Since its inception in 2019, PAST has supported capability building for the development and implementation of facility-level monitoring and reporting regime across ASEAN member states. I'm happy to note that the first two phases of PAST have been concluded. Under Phase 1, which was completed in 2020, ASEAN member states worked together to create a roadmap for developing a set of facility-level GHG M&R guidelines for the region. The roadmap has helped to pave the way for the harmonization of M&R systems in the region. Phase 2, which was completed in 2023, established facility-level GHG M&R guidelines based on the roadmap from Phase 1. It also launched the MRV information platform for the ASEAN region, which shares up-to-date country-specific information on GHG M&R system. We're now midway into Phase 3, which implements pilot projects in ASEAN member states, operationalizes M&R frameworks, and supports private sector in emissions tracking. Upon the completion of Phase 3, PAST will contribute to emissions reduction and support the development of carbon markets in ASEAN. I'm pleased with the considerable progress made by ASEAN member states in implementing their respective NNR pilot projects, and I look forward to what we can achieve together. I thank the Ministry of Environment Japan and Overseas Environmental Cooperation Center for your strong support towards enhancing ASEAN's capacity for transparency in GHG emissions through PASTI. I look forward to our continued partnership to collectively advance regional climate action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Grace Fu. Now we will have a quick photo session. The audience, the online participants, please bear with us for a minute. Minister Grace Fu, Minister Asao, please join us at the center for the photo session. One more, thank you. And now panelists and moderators, please join the stage with the ministers for a group's photo. Thank you very much. Minister Grace Fu and Minister Asao will now be leaving as they have other engagements to attend. Thank you, ministers, for taking the stage. Now, Mr. Fukuda and the panelists, please be seated in the audience. Now, I'd like to warmly welcome Mr. Sonobe, Dean of Asian Development Bank Institute, for the second keynote speech. Mr. Sonobe, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure and honor to speak right after their Excellencies' speeches. ADBI is a tiny think tank based in Tokyo, a subsidiary of Asian Development Bank. Yes, so this issue of revised GHG protocol can have a significant impact, both positive and negative, on the economies in ASEAN, and especially, not especially, but it impact will be for everyone, but small and medium enterprises in the region. The good impact will come in the long run. So eventually, the acquiring or complying ability to measure, report, and verify the GHG emissions will not only strengthen the effort toward the climate mitigation and adaptation, or climate related policy implementation and planning, but also the ability will improve the company's strengths, overall strengths, overall productivity, and also the ability to reach out the global market. But in the short run, the impact would be likely to be negative, or anyway, that will be a great challenge for SMEs. Although when we call SME, there are wide variety of different types of SMEs. Some are really growing fast, to be the driving force of the growing economy. But many others just want to be stable and continue their business, the hand on their business to the next generation. So there are different types. Now, if we focus on those emerging and dynamic SMEs, still, although they have ability to measure their own emission, but it's very difficult for them to, report about emissions coming from their, suppliers, vendors on the supply chain, right? So scope 3 will be a big challenge, and but they are required by their, customers. There could be big multinational companies based in Europe, US or Japan. They require all suppliers must be able to report in a transparent way. That will be a huge difficulty for because their own emission can be measured, reported, but their suppliers very difficult to train those small suppliers, right? So that's why this will be a great challenge. So PASTI, I really hope PASTI will work. This is a real hope because those emerging economy, growing small and medium enterprises, a real hope for emerging economies. But they became, a member of global supply chain. But now they may be excluded because if they cannot comply the new standard, then those big multinational companies, according to the opinion survey, the vast majority of multinational companies would replace those unable suppliers by the able supplier from Europe, US, or Japan. So it's a kind of, tipping point. So I think the PASTI will and should play the big role in supporting those growing, SMEs. And then, of course, the vast majority of SMEs prefer the stability. Those people are even more difficult. So the PASTI will play an important role for the very long run. That's my view about the impact. I stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sonobe. Now we will arrange seats to prepare for the panel discussion, and I would like to invite distinguished panelists to the stage seats. For the panel discussion, we have Mr. Tetsushi Sonobe, Dean of ADBI. Thank you for joining us on the stage again. Mr. Luong Kong Hui, Director of Mitigation Division, Department of Climate Change, Ministry of Natural Resources, Vietnam. Ms. Rachel Esther Gumtang Remalante, Director of Securities and Exchange Commission in the Philippines. Mr. Takehiro Watase, Executive Officer and CPO of Asene Incorporation. Ms. Ana Maria Gonzalez, Head of the Ayala Land Corporate Sustainability Unit, Ayala Land Incorporate. She will be joining us online today. Thank you for joining us. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Thank you for joining us today. And Mr. Makoto Kato, Principal Researcher and Board of Directors from OECC. And as a moderator today, I would like to welcome Mr. Koji Fukuda, Chief Technical Advisor for NDC Implementation Support from JICA. And now I'd like to invite Mr. Kato to the podium to give us a guiding presentation to kickstart the panel discussion. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, friends and colleagues. Thank you very much for the introduction. I have a very short presentation to walk you through the current trends of transparency or measurement reporting verification of greenhouse gas, well, especially at the corporate level, and how these are related to the SMEs. So first, yes, the next slide, please. one of the significant trends remark is this greenhouse gas reporting at the corporate level. In Japan, we have greenhouse gas mandatory accounting and reporting and system. This is what we call like a SHK system. What is very remarkable is, for example, in countries like Vietnam and other ASEAN member countries, well, they are actually developing for this kind of reporting scheme for as a mandatory ones for in the legal development, so that this has been in place for not only in Vietnam but also other countries. And you see some ASEAN member countries are currently in preparation for the new legal instruments, and then that surely contains the greenhouse gas reporting system. But it is also driven by the emissions trading scheme on the top side, so that that is some key drivers for in Asian context at this point of time. How the SMEs are related? Well, SME is not directly linked with the emissions trading scheme, but it is still indirectly linked, and then it's covered. Some SMEs are covered in the greenhouse gas reporting part. The next slide, please. And as has been mentioned also, supply chain is a big catch in this world, especially in the growing Asian markets, especially in ASEAN countries. Well, the entire production is linked internationally and domestically. And also companies, large companies, these days, they are expected to disclose their own emission, first of all, as scope 1 and 2. But as Dr. Sonobe mentioned, well, it is not limited to only their own direct emissions, but also indirect emissions, namely scope 3 is one of the things that those companies are expected to disclose. But here, SMEs are engaged, so that how we are going to engage for those SMEs. There are issues of capacities, issue of resources. And then maybe, this is something we should discuss for further for better engagement of SME partners. The next slide, please. And then digitalization or digital transformation is a massive trend here. And again, I would like to congratulate my Vietnamese colleague, Dr. Huy. I think he's going to touch upon a little bit on what is happening in his countries. But the digitalization is one of the biggest matters that will provide like facilities for companies to report, to be ready for reporting. And then, this includes facilities for SMEs. Also, not only from the government side, today we have my colleague from ASEAN, and some private companies are also providing this kind of services. So I think this kind of digital platform, how we are going to use this platform for engagement of companies, including SMEs. This is another issue. The next slide, please. And finally, I would like to congratulate the government of Japan and its partner countries, because this PASTI and other relevant transparency framework, this has been actually recognized as part of the ASIC activities. And then we're very happy to drive this efforts under ASIC as well. And also, as mentioned, Japan ASEAN Integration Fund, JIFE, has been utilized for this, and we intend to continue this kind of efforts. And then, this has been strongly supported and driven by the Ministry of the Environment, Japan, and also the government of Singapore. So we were very, very excited to have you with us here to start our discussion. So this is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kato. Now I'd like to hand over the microphone to Mr. Fukuda to begin the panel discussion. The floor is yours, Mr. Fukuda.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and assalamu alaikum. Thank you, MC, for your kind introduction. And let me just briefly introduce myself. I'm Koji Fukuda, currently spearheading JICA's NDC implementation support, co-implemented with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment of Vietnam. And it's a pleasure to be moderating this session with you. So as highlighted from the keynote speech and also framing presentations, how to capture and manage the greenhouse gas emissions from business sector remains to be the key issues at stake. And particularly the business sector is basically playing a very integral role to practically steer the decarbonization towards the net zero emission pathway. And as all the previous speakers and also Minister mentioned earlier, we are actually standing at a very interesting, exciting time, this transition time that we see a lot of momentum changing. On one side, there are lots of national effort to introduce domestic mandatory greenhouse reporting system put in place. Vietnam is one example. We'd like to hear more from you. And also, on the other hand, as Kato-san mentioned, there's a growing demand from investors, a financial community, for companies to disclose greenhouse gas information as part of broader sustainability reporting requirement, which is now becoming a mainstream activity. And how to assess and also respond to the climate risks that affects businesses is also a very important part of the disclosure that investors are wanted to see happening. So provided that many SMEs are also growing in Asia, integrated into this global supply chain, serving as a supplier to the global brands and big companies. So from this scope 3 emissions management perspective and also inclusivity, SME engagement is deemed critical for this pathway. But the practical question remains how. So for that, we have the rich panel here with us today, constituting governments, institutions, also the public sector, also the companies. So we'd like to hear from you, your thoughts and insights. So without further ado, let's start with the first set of questions. The first question relates to the engagement SMEs into this disclosure and sustainability reporting ecosystem. And it's easier said than done, for sure. And so for that, so what is the practical challenges in engaging the SMEs in green gas emissions disclosure in ASEAN? And for that, we'd like to invite both the government, our colleagues, and also private sector colleagues. So perhaps we'll start from with Rachel as a director of SEC Philippines. So you're playing the integral role in guiding this disclosure for listed companies. And and I would like to hear from you, what are the progress up to date within Philippines and what's happening as a next step, and what's your thoughts on engaging SMEs beyond the current activity? Rachel.
So, okay, after that technical glitch, thank you first for inviting me here and able to share what the Philippines has done so far in terms of disclosure, especially on, I think the most key word that we're looking for is on GHG. But just let me just backtrack a little on how we started requiring our companies, specifically our publicly listed companies, to have their sustainability reporting. And in that sustainability reporting that we launched in 2019, in that slide on the top corner, we have a very good compliance of the companies. It's around, in 2023, it's around almost 96% are reporting from our publicly listed companies. And in our template that we provided our companies to have some guidance on how to prepare their sustainability report, we already require them to report on their GHG emission. While scope 3 is not yet that much reported in our reports, but our thoughts on this matter is that we're developing and revising our guidelines and providing a template for companies to have a better idea on how to report the GHG. Because I know it's always challenging to present regulations to companies, there is always the thought of fear of unable to comply and fear of being penalized by the government if they are not unable to disclose. And there's always the issue of incorrectly providing the data. So a lot of guidance, a lot of partnership is always key in having the publicly listed companies which are more capable in actually reporting this. And now we're talking about small, medium enterprises where, of course, there will be a place of fear for them in terms of how to disclose. So in this next top picture on the right, this is just to show you the landscape of the Philippine. I included the M because this is the data that we have right now, but this also includes our small, medium enterprises in the Philippines. So for the micro, there's a large number of micro companies in the Philippines, and about 105,000 small, medium companies. And now we are also focusing on the large companies because there are unlisted and they have also a big chunk of emission as well. And we talk about the value chain where the small and medium are going to play a part in. And what we did is that this year, we just introduced our sustainability reporting to our small, medium enterprises. Here you can see on the top in the slide below, we did 3 road shows all over the Philippines. We went to Cebu, and then we went to Davao this year. And lastly, we went to Baguio to promote sustainability reporting and introduce little by little bite sizes in the meantime on sustainability reporting and a little bit disclosing on their contribution on the GHG. We're doing this roadshow to introduce this a little so that when we do have, of course, when we did the roadshow, the question was, are you now requiring us to submit a sustainability report and to report on our GHG? What we tell them is that before we do that, we will do our best to prepare you because if reporting is one thing, but the content and the quality of the data is another. So just to share with you, and we're proud to say, this initiative of ours, we call it the Smileys. So that is the SEC, small, medium industries, and large enterprises embracing sustainability. So that's what we call the SEC Smileys. And we actually was recognized during an ISAR award just 2 weeks ago. So this is how we are looking at it. What's important is not just to issue the regulation, but what is more important is the preparation. Just a last note, we're also developing our own online platform for the publicly listed companies. It's also going to, we try to make it easy for the companies, for them to report on their sustainability report, and the GHG will provide guidance. And then for the next 2 years, our proposal is to make it voluntary in the meantime, and then eventually PAC will mandate it. So that's our perspective on the GHG reporting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for your comprehensive introduction and whereabouts of your country's effort. And one thing I associate with your points is that even listed companies, the big ones, make mistakes, in emissions reporting. So we can't expect perfection from the beginning. It's a constant, try and error that would improve the reporting itself. Thank you very much. Now we would like to move on to Vietnam. Dr. Hui, thank you very much. And as the climate change focal point agency, I think your department is a forefront of this greenhouse gas state management. And particularly, your country has adopted the regulation to mandate the facility to report greenhouse gas emission. That's quite ambitious, I think. So I would like to hear from you what the status of the reporting and how do you think about integrating SME in the long run?
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much, ADBI and OECC, for having me. And let's go straight to the issues that seeing we committed under our NDC and also the net zero. And we actually got our law and environmental protection issue in 2020 with provision that the facility level with large emitters will have the legally binding responsibility to report on their GHG emission data and information. So the first thing is to find out who are they. So we have a Prime Minister decision also legally binding for 2 rounds already. We update it every 2 years. And the first rounds, we got close to 2,000 of them. And that please notice that in Vietnam, we have more than 900,000 companies, but only less than 4% of them are large emitters. Only less than 4% of them, mostly that the big corporation and manufacturing and industry companies. And out of those 4%, then we identify 2,000 of them. But 2,000 of them takes up to about 50 to 60% of the whole SME and the private sectors, not SME, private sectors emission in Vietnam. And then the second update was last year, and is more than 2,000 of them. And so all of those companies are subject to provide a full and very detailed GHG emission reports. So when we do that, we faced a lot of issues, a lot of challenges. First of all, that, well, for many of those companies, they are international or multinational corporations, so they were aware of what GHG emission report is from their, companies from around the world. But for many others, they got no idea. So we have to start with improving their awareness and perception, and then a series of workshops and seminars and training has been organized in the past few years. Literally every single week that we got to go to provinces and to private sector to talk to people. And then we kind of outsource that kind of training because we only have about less than 100 people in our department. We can't go out all the time. So we get big companies to train smaller companies within their supply chain system. So big corporations, they have a big supply chain, and then they can talk, and they can talk to each other, they can teach each other how to do that. And at the same time that we deal with the guidelines front by the government from different line ministries would issue a legally binding guidelines, technical guidelines in the form of our circular, ministerial circular, to guide the companies from different sectors to have their guidelines on how to make a GHG emission report, and also to measures to MRV their measures to reduce GHG emission. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing, which is very important that we recently do with the support from JICA and OECC as well, is we want to digitalize everything, starting with the reporting responsibility of the facility. So we started for more than a year now, and we completed quite a number of sectors, for example, waste, and quite a few within the energy sector like steel and chemicals and pulp and the paper and pulp and beverages, and then a little bit on the transportation sector, and then we go into cement and construction materials and so on. And we about halfway there, and we still have another halfway to go to complete all the methodologies and the calculation measures for the companies to use the online system to calculate their GHG emission. And then what they can do is that we're providing accounts to central level, ministerial level, and facility level. So they can use the account to access the portal, to access the system, and providing their own inputs. And it will produce a report accordingly to the regulation for themselves. But that system will not work without any legal foundation. So at the same time that my department and Ministry of Environment, we also have to develop our government decree to legalize that system, and also legalize all the guidelines and responsibility. And that, of course, come along with the training, come along with the awareness raising for people. So as I mentioned, we're halfway there, and with the support from JICA and OECC, we look forward to about the next 2 years so we can complete the system that would coincide with the next round of reporting of the companies. And the encouraging side is that many companies are very supportive of that system, and they very much look forward to having to use that system in the near future for their reporting responsibility. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Fui, for your comprehensive introduction of our whereabouts of your country. And particularly, I find a common effort by Philippines and your country to digitize the whole system. And particularly your note on the legalizing and the providing legal justification is a quite important point. Thank you. Now, I'd like to turn on to our companies' perspectives. And we have 2 companies here with us today. One from Mr. Watase-san from SME company. And welcome. And we'd like to hear from you how your company is actually supporting, first of all, the management of our client companies, GHG data analysis. At the same time, your experiences, according to your experience on the engagement with companies, what are the practical challenges that you're facing, and how do you think about engaging SMEs?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Takehiro Watase from SME Inc. Let me briefly introduce our company. SME is a climate tech company, and we provide GHG calculations as SME and ESG cloud rating service, SME ESG, and so on. So SME is GHG calculation is #1 user service in Japan, and our offices and branches in Japan and US and Singapore and Thailand to support decarbonization management whole new world. Worldwide. So difficulties for SMEs in climate-related disclosures, we think 4 big issues. You may have heard of capacity building. SMEs have few staff than more large enterprises. As a result, they have a limited ESG and limited climate-related knowledge and limited capabilities to respond. So speed is not increased. Large enterprises can outsource to consultant or hire 2 or 3 members, but SMBs cannot. So it creates more gap. When sales, second is the cost. When sales growth or ESG are weighted in the balance, many SMEs will prioritize immediate sales. Except for a few SMEs, for example, Japanese or Singaporean companies in mature industries. This is a big problem for many SMEs in the ASEAN area. Third is data collection and measurement. Lack of data and knowledge is a major barrier. Many companies feel calculate and reporting emissions is difficult. Last is the report standards. In ASEAN, each country has its own regulation and guidelines and rules. For SMEs, it's difficult to understand and accept that. So next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. It's a South Asia's economies and energy and South Asia's report. South Asia's economies and energy is rapid growth over the past 2 decades. This is great. But however, overall, coral is also rising. On the right side, it is energy demand by country. You can see the energy types are very different. So, example, Myanmar and Cambodia have strong renewable energy. This is hydropower. Each country has different rules and policies. It's hard to understand and meet for SMEs. Next slide, please. So it's a data coverage. The ASEAN area is still in a situation where there are not many. As the frontal table shows, Japan has many emissions factors. Because of the emission factors is less in known country, our clients, many companies use Japanese emission factors. In fact, we provide the emissions factors with converting the currency. We need to understand and improve upon the differences between countries. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Watasa-san. And on top of the traditional issue of the capacity resources, I think you tap on very important point of lack of localized emission factor for accurate accounting. That's also a very important point. And now we'd like to move on to Miss Anna, joining on with us online. She's the coming from Ayala Corporation, the biggest land developer in Philippines. Miss Anna, I think you're here with us, and could you tell us your insight from a large, you are the part of a large enterprise. You'd like to ask your perspective and also how you strive to engage suppliers within your company. Anna.
Right. Yeah, before I answer that fully, I just wanted to flash this slide to give you an idea of the type of business that we run. So essentially, we are a property developer. We both develop and build as well as maintain or manage properties. So we also have our own construction company. If you look at the bottom right, business services, MDC is the Makati Development Corporation. It is also the Philippines' largest construction company. So most of our suppliers are actually on the construction side. Of course, there are our supply chain also includes our tenants and our other downstream clients. So as far as we are concerned, I think we have been, just to follow through what Rachel was saying, we have been reporting since 2007, but reporting is still a challenge for us. Well, mostly because of our scale and also the lack of talent that will help us with greenhouse gas accounting. So you can imagine the challenges that our small and medium industries are facing insofar as greenhouse gas accounting is concerned. Some of our larger partners or suppliers are also reluctant to start their journey. However, I have good news, as our largest steel supplier has already started on its journey to account for their greenhouse gas emissions, despite the fact that they are not a publicly listed company. So that's good news. So I hope other bigger companies, large enterprises in the Philippines will follow their example. And the reason for them to do that is so that they will be competitive in the market. They are the country's largest producer of green steel. So they are actually taking advantage of that positioning and are already selling to Canada, for example, or other countries that have a demand for green steel. But they are also committed to supply green steel locally. As far as the other enterprises, however, so our small and medium and micro enterprises actually make up about 63% of our suppliers, but only represent about 30% of our spend. So our large enterprises are only about 37% as far as number, but they account for about 70% of our spend. Their emissions are actually more or less similar to that ratio. So maybe like 70% of our scope 3 emissions from PG&S, purchased goods and services, and other upstream emissions are coming from these large enterprises. So at least for them, even if it's still a challenge for them to start reporting, there are some, I would say, some incentive for them to start accounting. However, the same situation is also true for them if a large PLC or publicly listed company such as ours are facing challenges in reporting due to talent or the amount of data that we have to collect. So do they have those kinds of challenges? Now, for the small enterprises, I think some of our panelists already mentioned their challenges. That would be the time and effort that is needed. If you look at the bottom left of my slide, you would see micro enterprises and small enterprises is these are the number of people that they have typically. Medium enterprises can go up to maybe 300 personnel. So that is the limit of their capacity, I should say. And in the Philippines, I'm not sure, at least in our supply chain, these small and medium and micro enterprises usually are, I think it's the small and micro enterprises are usually labor suppliers. The medium enterprises are usually just importers or distributors of products which are manufactured outside the Philippines and brought in. So they have, we haven't really tried. We are just beginning to engage with them to ask where their emissions are coming from. We think it's coming from logistics and transport of their product to the Philippines. So I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but at least in our case for Ayala Land, since we have started on our greenhouse gas accounting, or accounting for our Scope 3 emissions, we see a pathway to engaging with our suppliers so that they could start their greenhouse gas accounting. Of course, there will still be challenges. But I'd like to maintain a positive view over this particular challenge.
Okay, thank you, Anna, for your interventions, and we'll note that your company's effort to reach out to your suppliers. And for the time management, we are a little bit behind the schedule, so I'd like to speed up a little bit, and I would like to ask the panelists to sort of squeeze your responses within 3 minutes, if possible. So with that, I'd like to move on to the next set of questions. So having heard all the challenges of engaging SMEs, but also listed companies as well, so what are the remedies? And that's the interesting part of questions. So for that, I'd like to, first of all, invite Dean of ADBI, Mr. Sonobe. And thank you very much for your patience and welcome to the panel. And I think your presence means a lot to me personally, as you're also my dissertation advisor for my master's program. So you give me a double pressure for me, but let me give a try. So having heard all these practical challenges from companies, what opportunities and challenges do you see, particularly to coping with Scope 3 emissions? I think you have tapped on that in the keynote speech. And also, what is the ADBI's perhaps engagement in this reporting? Dr. Sonobe.
So the difficulty lies in the, challenge lies in this difficulty in the measuring, reporting, and verifying. So the best solution would be to make those things easier. So just as SNA is doing, and then we have already had the good practices like Philippines, SEC Smile, and using online, and Vietnam already doing digitalization and online, and then the templates. So making easier for them to what to measure and what to report, right? And I think also India, for example, they are using the smart meter for electricity consumption and generation, which immediately automatically generate data. So this will be eventually the most, effective way to make reporting and measuring easier. So yeah, whenever it's possible to automatize that kind of equipment should be used. And then, yeah, so it's really nice to hear those, successful attempts, hopeful attempts. So that's why I think one of the important things is to share the knowledge and experiences internationally. So, and then in the case of ADBI, it's a think tank. So convening power is its only weapon or asset. So we will use that convening power to have lots of create lots of forums of discussion, share knowledge sharing, experience sharing. And actually, for example, we started last year, toward the end of last year, we started conversation among ASEAN +3 countries, the financial regulators, because last year, even the financial regulators in ASEAN countries, maybe except for the Singapore or some other few others, do not know much about disclosure. They are not sure about what they are doing, what they should do. So we had started the conversation among them. So it was a kind of great hit because they are so happy. Now we are also inviting the central bankers from the region and let them, communicate each other. And then likewise, this event itself is a great sharing opportunity. So thank you very much, Ministry of Environment Japan. So I think the best practice, one of best practice is this kind of event, as well as those individual efforts. Yeah, please share your knowledge and experiences more.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sonobe. And I think the key terminology, the automation, and also the knowledge sharing space, maximizing it, I think is a way forward. So we'd like to move on to Kato-san and from OECC. I think we share experiences in this journey. And but you're also forefront on PASTI initiative. So what could you share with us? What is your key observations and potential remedies based on the discussions?
Thank you very much, Kuda-san. I would like to share what I have witnessed for these days and through our cooperation activities for under PASTI and also JICA SPI-NDC. We work with large companies, publicly listed companies, and as Philippine Security Exchange Commission, companies are expected to disclose for their emissions as the requirements of the participation in the stock exchange, and that applies to responding to the expectation to investors. But those companies are really seriously considering, like, what about our scope 3 emissions? Well, my scope 1, 2 emissions, well, that is easy, but scope 3 emissions coming from our partners from SMEs, this is scary things, and the investors keep asking them to disclose. So that is the situation, and we have had this similar situation in Japan, but now I have seen this in Vietnam. I have seen this in the Philippines, and we have been working with some Japanese companies working with SMEs in Thailand, actually. What they do is they have embarked like a proactive engagement of small companies. Well, they are working on capacity building work, sort of like a training workshop in the supply chain management as a corporate initiative. Of course, it is not always easy for them to do this alone. But our government, Ministry of the Environment, and perhaps JICA as well, we have potential to work on that direction. And I think that is somehow we can inclusively engage and work together, SMEs, as well as the benefit of large companies. And finally, well, that is contributing to the, NDCs as well. This is my submission.
Yeah, thank you, Kato-san, for providing insight on how we can actually constructively contribute to the scope 3 emissions accounting, which is a concern for many companies. So we'd like to also hear from companies side as well. So Watase-san, I'd like to hear from your thoughts. What could be the remedies based on your observed challenges?
Yeah, thank you, Fukuta-san. So slide, please. We think 3 necessary actions to further disclosure is okay, thank you. Simplify, support, and collaborate. 3 points. Simplifies template and framework. GHG disclosure not only for large companies but also for SMEs involving. So we feel the same and smart template will accelerate the process. CFP data, primary data is more important because of battery regulation and so on. So it's exchanged seamlessly through the framework. Simple ways required. And second is support. Support is financial and digital tools. Singapore and Malaysia offering subsidized area. Singapore covering 70% and Malaysia 50%. This will be tailwind. Access to digital tools is also important. They don't know yet which tools to use. Reasonable priced software and education is needed. Last is collaborate. Collaborate is a standardization and knowledge share. Collaboration between public and private sectors, large companies and SMEs. There are many regulations, so it will be better to use one software on the same page. So last is most important, share knowledge, best practice. All companies are looking for best practices and community events are very active. We think use case and knowledge sharing is really important to achieve cost reduction and disclosure. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much, Watase-san. I think the simplification is a very key word for this system to function. And yes, standardization as well, because there are so many different tools available. So maybe companies be confused which one to use. There has to be a guidance to or at least to harmonize for the tool. Thank you. And Ms. Anna, if you can hear with us, could you share with us your thoughts? What could be the way forward for this? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, well, a few thoughts come to mind after taking a look at our own supply chain. Number one is, at least in our case, the medium enterprises are also interested in, at least in the Philippines, are also interested in decreasing their emissions, at least as far as some of them are concerned. My thoughts is the way forward is to start with, if we can incentivize reporting by highlighting those who are already doing measures or undertaking measures to reduce their own emissions. For example, if a company is actually intentionally going into a lower emissions product, then maybe they can be encouraged to do so by actually reporting their scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, basically their fuel and their electricity consumption. And the other way, at least on our end, is to continue engaging with them and to ask them what other assistance they may need from us, whether it's technical assistance or if we can connect them to financing agencies that can actually help them with their efforts. Because as you know, it really takes manpower as well as resources for them to start this. The other one is actually more of a how to take a look at scope 3 emissions. In our case, we really start with making sure that we know our baseline emissions, and then we go through a materiality exercise and determine which are our largest sources of emissions. In our case, we've identified it. It's from steel, cement, and PVC plastics that we use for our piping. So we are engaging with them and have encouraged them to start their emissions accounting journey. So I think that's the way forward. For the whole system, maybe nationally, I agree with the need for regulation, but not to penalize, but to incentivize. So let us reward those who are already in that journey and encourage the others who are not yet, that it can be done. Because after all, the Philippines is actually a net receiver of climate change impacts. So we really have to work together on this.
Yeah, thank you, Anna, for your insights. And now move on to the last set of questions, given the time. And it's slightly related to the remedies, the previous question. The next question is more of the way forward. Where should we go from here in terms of the disclosure? So with respect to corporate disclosure sustainability reporting, what direction should ASEAN be heading? So it's more broader question, and we'd like to start from Dr. Sonobe. I'd like to hear from your perspective, and particularly how do you think about learning, not only within the region, but also other regions and more broader perspective? Dr. Sonobe.
Yes. So yeah, we all agree that the sharing is important, learning from others is important. But another advantage of sharing is to putting peer pressure on each other, like ASEAN countries are always doing. If Vietnam did, then the Philippines think, oh, we must be able to do that, and Indonesia and others as well. And then so we can make progress. But where to go? So maybe the ASEAN countries' advantage is can learn from other regions. So we should have more kind of sharing, not only within region, but also across the region. So yes, so for that purpose, yeah, please call us ADBI. Happy to convene.
Yeah, thank you very much for tapping on the importance of cross-regional and having the more healthy peer-to-peer pressure to strive each other. And Ms. Rachel, I'd like to also hear from your thoughts where this journey should go in terms of the sustainability reporting.
So I think there has been a lot of collaborative work, especially in the ASEAN. We're also part of the ASEAN Capital Markets Forum. So this is a forum where regulators of securities are involved and those that are regulating the publicly listed companies. We have a working group there that also very focused on sustainability reporting, disclosures, and of course, the climate first action. And it's interesting to know we have a regular meeting with them. So the collaboration is always key, partnership. And then there's always the pressure to have more capacity building because some concerns of the regulators, because we want companies to comply with disclosures, but we also fear that we don't know what we are requiring companies to report on. So a lot of capacity building demand. We are also seeking and looking for partners that would provide this capacity building to us. The challenge of there are so many frameworks out there. Hopefully the ISSB, IFRS S1 and S2 would probably be the single framework later on, but who knows, maybe there's another framework in the future. So we just have to keep on building on our capacity, looking on emerging trends. What would be, sometimes it's a fit to purpose for regulators and companies. And continuous collaboration, I think as mentioned by Dr. Sonobe, this is a good opportunity as well to listen, to learn, and consistent collaboration. And of course, in the ASEAN, probably later on as an ASEAN family, we can have our own standards in the meantime, because we are also looking at something that would be relevant to our environment, to our condition, something that we have a common language in terms of our geography, how to have this report because of our different culture. Sometimes there's pressure as well coming from like Europe, their standards, but we have to work as a team in order to address a global concern. So I think that's the way forward. A lot of discussion, a lot of teamwork, and a lot of course, I saw your template. I always start with the template because I'm a regulator, so I know what to look for. So I think that's also a very good step. And we have to agree, a small group, 10 countries or soon 11 countries, to agree on something that we can commonly report on. So we can be comparable to the other countries. And then other countries may look at us and, oh, you guys are doing something good, and we can be that good example. So thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. And I think it's very encouraging to hear about this, to become a more standard setter for the regions, fitting to the regional context, rather than, just a consumer of the standard from somewhere else. I think that's very important also message. Thank you very much. And last but not least, Dr. Hui would like to hear from your view how we should move forward from here.
Yeah, we have 5 minutes left, so I'll be very brief. I totally agree with Rachel and all of you. And I think the key point is that we need to make private sector understand what's in it for them. What would be the benefit that they would get out of disclosure and reporting all of those information for us, for the government, and also the prospect of developing the market, the carbon market in the future as well. And it's a case for Vietnam because we're going to pick out all of those who are legally subject to report, to be pilot for our ETS in the very near future. So, and I think that's while creating a forum between ASEAN countries. For example, Thailand has been quite advanced compared to many of us, and so that would be good to learn from each other, not only from governments but also from private sector side as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hui, for your very brief but concrete statement. Okay, and ladies and gentlemen, I think we're coming to the end of the session, unfortunately, and I think we can spend 2 more weeks full retreat if you want to really deep dive into this topic. However, the time is against us, so I'd like to wrap this session up. So let me just try to summarize in a takeaway. So this afternoon, we collectively discussed, and also the theme of greenhouse gas disclosure by the business sector, with particular focus on SMEs, how we engage them. And we've heard over the challenges, we have many practical challenges and way forward as well. So some of the key topics or the language we hear, for example, I'd like to highlight some of them. One is, for example, when it comes to the engagement, I think preparations also important, engagement more than just regulation. Those are, I think, the government side to put effort forward. And other things, digitization is also another key topic that we have heard. At the same time, that is the automation of the data to make life easier for, particularly for smallholders and SMEs to come aboard. And also knowledge sharing. I think that's quite important. And we also learned that not only the facilities need capacity building, but also we need to also inform other financial regulators, other community as well. So massive amount of and diversified capacity buildings required to fully implement this disclosure system to happen. So I think a lot more to be said, but because of time, I'd like to close this session. So please join me giving a hand to all the panelists for their contributions. Okay, back to you, MC.
Thank you, Mr. Fukuda. Thank you, distinguished panelists and speakers, for the vibrant discussions. As a researcher from implementing agency for PASTI, I've learned a lot from the discussion, and I'm looking forward to continue to have a dialogue elsewhere, and I hope it's the same for all the audience. Thank you, audience and online audience, for your participation. If you're curious about the Japan's Corporation for GHG Emission Disclosure and Transparency, I have a QR code on the screen. Please visit the homepage for PASTI, and we welcome any questions and requirement via the QR code as well. Well, this will conclude this seminar, and thank you very much for your participation, and have a very nice day. Thank you.